Welcome to Career Makers from TA Tech, the Association for Talent Acquisition Solutions. We created this program because there is lots of great content out there on the web, great content about strategies and tactics for talent acquisition, and great content about technology. But the secret sauce behind all of that, the secret sauce that makes strategies and tactics and technology actually work, are the people who create and operate those technology products and the strategies and tactics that apply them. So we wanted you to know a little bit about the people behind the technology. We wanted to introduce you to those who are creating it and those who are operating it, because we think that kind of information is a form of virtual mentoring, and it's also a lot of fun. It's a combination of wisdom and storytelling. And for today's program, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Michael Hurwitz, who is the president of careersingovernment.com. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate it. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And how about you? How are things out there in your side of the country?
Doing fantastic today. Los Angeles, 72 degrees and sunny, so nothing to complain about whatsoever.
That's great. That's great. Well, let's dive right in.
Yeah.
Well, first, tell us a little bit about careersingovernment.com, your role there as president, and what the company is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peter, it's a great story because it involves family and it involves working together with your partner in life and building an opportunity, building a venture, and really building a life out of this business. And like you said, it's a lot of mentoring, whether it be my mother and father that mentored me, my in-laws that were actively involved and created careers in government originally that were great mentors, including my wife that's a mentor to me. It really all came together in this business. And a little bit of background on careers in government. It was started by my in-laws. My father-in-law, Mark Weinberg, had been in government for more than 4 decades, and most recently was the city manager of Inglewood, California, and actually came back to Inglewood, California as a consultant most recently. So he had years, decades of experience in government. And he and my mother-in-law, Inga, around 1995, 1996, decided that job boards were starting to come online. You had Monster, you had Hot Jobs, and that was about it. And they thought, we could recreate that concept, but do that for state and local government. And they did that quite successfully for a number of years. The business now has been operational for more than 25 years and is really a leader in the space of state and local government recruitment marketing. So they ran it successfully. But about 10 years ago, when I met Corey, my wife and business partner, they were looking to sell the business and kind of move on to new adventures in their life. And my wife, Corey, had actually helped her parents launch careers in government and used that experience to go over to Hot Jobs. She was the 9th employee hired at Hot Jobs and was instrumental in growing Hot Jobs to the point where they then obviously were sold to Yahoo. So she had years of experience in the job board marketplace. And at the time when I was dating Corey, I was vice president of digital marketing for Gannett. So I was overseeing the digital advertising for USA Today, their regional papers. We thought this careers in government would be a great opportunity to kind of take our knowledge in the private sector and use that to help the public sector. So we took over the business about 10 years ago, but real quickly, what stood out to us was that job boards had changed over the decades, and so did employment pages, and so did how job seekers, obviously, and employers were engaging with each other. So with that in mind, we knew that we had to build more than just a job board. We really wanted to develop a recruitment marketing agency for state and local government. So now we offer employer branding, social media marketing, recruitment marketing services for state and local government, and really expanded our portfolio of services that we can then deliver to our employers.
That's a great story. It really puts to bed this notion that job boards are dead. I suppose that Gen 1 job boards are the ones that were founded back in the 1990s, but those that evolved, as yours has, those that responded to the needs of customers, really have had a great deal of success. And they remain the number one source of new hires among employers year after year after year.
Yeah.
So,
So
so what kind of talent do state and local governments look for these days?
it's such a broad question. It's a great question, but it's so broad across so many different job categories within the state and local government umbrella. So whether it be public safety, public health, day labor jobs, city management jobs, the talent requirements vary dramatically. But what I think is interesting right now, and we're not the only ones dealing with this issue, is that employers have great job opportunities. The problem are job seekers are kind of sniffing around. They might apply or partially apply, and then they might ghost the employer. And the employers are having a very difficult time in government right now finding positions. Or finding candidates for their positions. And it's a real challenge because, very rare in the employment landscape do you have more jobs available than there are job seekers. And so employers are having to utilize tactics, at least this is on the government side, that they haven't taken advantage of in the past as much. It could be social media marketing. It could be more employer branding. It could be improving their benefits. It could be rewriting their job posts, which are traditionally much more outdated than the private sector. So they're looking at a number of situations that they have to rectify, as well as the work requirements, whether that be remote work, work flex, you name it. People are looking to go back into the workforce, but they're being very particular in what they want. And employers are having to kind of scramble to figure out what that right mix is in order to capture that job seeker. So we're seeing a lot of employers advertise significant increase in our growth, but the challenge is making certain that there's a connection from the right job seekers to the right employers.
Right, right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about you. Where did you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What kinds of things fascinated you as you were a kid?
Great question. So I grew up in Iowa. Actually, I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. Long history of my family living in Des Moines, Iowa, and went to University of Iowa. Go Hawkeyes. There's a strong connection to the state of Iowa. With that said, I've been in Los Angeles after I graduated college. I felt that Iowa is an amazing place to grow up, a great foundation, a work ethic that was instilled in me from my parents, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But, growing up, I didn't know if I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually, after graduating college, my parents said, well, why don't you go to law school? You did well in school. And I said, well, if it gets me out of Iowa into California, that's great. So, in terms of growing up, what my direction was, and probably most people deal with this, is I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And I figured that, it was very stressful, obviously, especially in your 20s as a young man. You're trying to figure out what path you want in the world. And I was taking numerous detours along that path. But, what I saw from my parents, from my mom, and especially from my dad in terms of the entrepreneurship, I knew in my heart I wanted to develop a business. And so, I actually, my dad, long story short, my dad had a very successful specialty foods distribution business that was nationally recognized, one of the largest in the country, and started it from absolutely nothing. Had not a penny in his pocket, built that business. And there's the old saying, there's a Mark Twain saying, I think it's, when I was 14 years old, my dad was so ignorant. And now that I'm 21, it's amazing how much my dad learned in the last 7 years. And so, I didn't understand as a young kid the amount of hard work that was required by my dad and the sacrifices that he had to make, as well as my mom, in building his entrepreneurial opportunity, growing his business, the amount of hours that he had to spend away from the family, the amount of work that my mom had to take in, nurturing and raising 3 children. That's an incredibly demanding situation that as a child you don't appreciate. But in the back of my mind, I knew from my dad consistently telling me that it's important to have a work ethic no matter what you want in life. And you might not know for many years to come. Work hard at whatever you're doing, be the most successful at what you're doing, and the path will open up for you naturally. Excuse me. And that's what happened. I went to law school for a year. When I moved out to California, it was absolutely not for me. I meandered through mostly advertising and marketing opportunities, successfully went to Gannett, really grew my career at Gannett, but I also took a sidestep and launched an online food venture with the assistance of my dad. At the time, my dad had sold his business to a very large grocery chain called Hy-Vee Food Stores out in the Midwest. And I worked with Hy-Vee in building their online food opportunity. And this was again in the late 90s. So, I knew in my heart that I wanted to continue in an entrepreneurial path. I just didn't know what that path was. And so I think the first, mentors would be absolutely my parents growing up. And then when I took over the business, the mentors also were my in-laws, who I saw were so successful at building careers in government, while my father-in-law was actively working in city government, and my mother-in-law was raising 2 beautiful children, as well as running the business. So there was so much demand from people, and I think people don't realize the amount of work and dedication that it takes to build a business.
Well, that's great counsel, Michael. I think we hear about the success stories. We hear about the great entrepreneurs out there in the world, and we don't realize how many people give it their best go and are not successful, maybe with their first venture or their second venture or their third venture. It takes a lot of failure sometimes to get to that success point. So that's a great story. So you ended up in talent acquisition through romance, I guess.
Yes.
That's an interesting entree into that field. Had you had any experience at all with recruiting or talent acquisition before that point in time?
Interesting side story. So Corey, my wife and business partner, who I could not make this happen without her, after she was with Hot Jobs and expanded that, she went over to JDate, which is still around. It's a Jewish dating service, and helped grow that business. And she always has a perfect comment or perfect analogy, and that is that online dating services are similar to talent acquisition. You're connecting one person with another person, whether it be in the dating realm or talent acquisition realm. It's about making that connection. And so she had that talent acquisition background and understood the value and importance of making that digital connection between, whether it be, again, a job seeker and employer, or between 2 people that want to date. I, on the other hand, came to it more as a digital advertising angle, where I saw the value in creating connections from employers and job seekers, and seeing that there was a disconnect in government, and there was a lack of real communication taking place between the employer and job seeker, and a desire for employers in the public sector to stay ahead of the curve and stay where private sector was moving towards in terms of talent acquisition and recruitment marketing. But they were somewhat behind the 8 ball, because obviously government runs a little different pace than private sector. So we found this niche, and we were able to really expand in that space and educate employers as well as job seekers. So, we really, my wife took at it from the direction of, she had the direct talent acquisition experience. I came at it from more of a digital marketing aspect. But I can honestly say I've worked in the private sector for more than 25 years. There's nothing more rewarding than working with people in the public sector. These are hardworking people that are active in the community. They believe in their community. They believe in what they do. the challenge is getting that message out to a younger workforce that working in government is an incredibly rewarding opportunity. And some people find out about that later when they realize that I had no pension in the private sector. Now I have an opportunity where I can grow a pension in government and can have a great career in government. But we really are brand advocates on the value of working in government and the opportunity for employers to brand themselves as employers of choice, whether it be public or private sector, as to why a job seeker should come and work for them. It's an exciting time to be in this space, I believe. I believe, turmoil and challenges, whether it be in the economy or employment landscape, create opportunity for folks like us, opportunities for job seekers, and opportunities for employers.
So, are you seeing any shift in the way that job seekers, people in the workforce, look at public sector jobs? This could be a pivot point as people get more choosy about where they want to go to work. They may find um, the mission of public sector jobs to be more appealing to them. And they might, for the first time, really give that mission a chance. I guess conceptually that's possible. So, are you seeing any? I know you spoke earlier about, it's hard to find candidates for a lot of the openings, but are you seeing any movement at all in perhaps Gen Z in their interest in public sector jobs?
Yeah, great question, Peter. Yeah, we are seeing a change, and we started seeing that. Early on when we took over the business 10 years ago, you're still dealing predominantly with the Gen X and above generational employment landscape. And about the second to third year of growing our business, which was maybe 2012, 2013, you started seeing more and more of the millennials coming into the marketplace, and more discussion of how do we reach these individuals. And I think social media played a part in that. It wasn't a end all be all. There's no magic tool in the toolbox that will connect an employer with a job seeker, but social media was one additional tool that they started to utilize. I think now there's a realization that they have to look at even more tools in that toolbox and to really aggregate those opportunities. So what I mean by that is utilizing social media, utilizing strategic job boards like our own that, offer a community with career resources and an environment where employers and job seekers can continuously communicate amongst each other. Diversity marketing continues to grow, especially in the public sector. So we're doing more and more diversity marketing efforts and assisting them, whether that be coordinating with diversity job boards, social media diversity marketing, employer branding with diversity marketing, and reaching out to government associations to bring in their diversity resources to then offer those to job seekers and employers. And like I said, employer branding that we're expanding our services in. Employers are realizing that if they don't take advantage of all these tools at once, they're going to miss the mark. So whether it be, strategically utilizing more advertising opportunities, whether it be partnerships with more government associations to get their messaging out, improvements in their own website, not burying their jobs within a city website, but marketing their jobs strategically on their website, understanding the UX for a job seeker and the experience that job seeker has when they click on a city website. One of the biggest challenges that we've been preaching for years is that when a job seeker goes to a city, county, or agency website, one of the first things that not only a job seeker, but anyone, one of the first things that anyone does when they go to a city agency website, or again, county, state, et cetera, is they want to look for jobs. Even beyond anything else, jobs are the number one reason why people go to these agency websites. Yet they have to click on the human resources tab. They have to click on, they have to drill down at least 2 to 3 pages before they get to the jobs. And there's a real need now for employers to strategically promote the jobs, not only with agencies like Careers in Government, but directly on their own, and to also reevaluate career fairs, utilizing virtual career fairs, whether that be through services like LinkedIn or anywhere else. We're seeing the need and the understanding that job seekers aren't going to be going the traditional route in terms of looking for jobs.
Okay, so you've been at Careers in Government for some time now,
Yeah.
but you had a fairly long career before you got there, before you bumped into Corey and magic happened. So, we all face bumps along the road in our careers. Was there one particular challenge that you felt taught you something about how to manage your career, how to take advantage of that good advice that your father gave you about working hard? But even working hard doesn't eliminate the challenges that come along from time to time. Was there any one sort of hiccup that you learned something from?
Are you talking today or this week or this year? Yes, I have a great story that I love sharing. And it was when Corey and I were just taking over the job board. In fact, it was a few days after we were taking over the job board, and we were still working with the hosting provider and the programmer at the time. We each had our own jobs as well. I was still at Gannett. Corey at the time was teaching. We were just working with the staff, the old staff of Careers in Government, and understanding the ins and outs of the job board marketplace. And Corey called me up and said, the site's completely down, completely down. Now, normally things like that will sometimes happen, understandably, and everyone that's listening to this webcast can relate to that. But again, I'm at a Gannett board meeting, Corey's teaching, the site is completely down, and we barely know who to call because, again, we're just taking over the job board. We're working again with the existing team at Careers in Government. So I call the hosting provider, and I'm talking to the lead guy there. And I said, what's going on? You got to get the site up. And he's like, well, I'll get it up, but I have to discuss something with you, which you never want to hear when, when the site's still down. I said, what is that? And he said, I can't guarantee that the entire site will be back up. And of course, my heart stops for a few minutes. I jumpstart my heart again. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, we don't back up the site daily. So the site had not been backed up for, I don't want to tell you how long. The data was corrupted. It was finally back online. About 40% of all the data was gone, including contacts, all the background information, job seekers. Then I had to get that data to be exported to our new programmers and our new hosting provider while still trying to understand this marketplace, understanding the technology behind it, and understanding the business platform that Careers in Government had built. It was an absolute panic, but during the entire crisis, we stayed focused. We didn't panic. I mean, we panicked enough, but we didn't panic to the point that we were paralyzed with fear. We realized that problems get solved, but what doesn't get solved is where there's a paralysis of not moving forward. And so I learned early on that you have to constantly move forward. You're going to continuously make mistakes. Trust me, it wasn't the last. It's not going to be the last. There's mistakes that we deal with every single day, but the absolute joy that I get being an owner of a business is that you yourself decide what needs to be undertaken, how best to move forward, and what steps do we need to get us to step B. And once I had that realization, I took a deep breath, you work the solution and move forward. And I saw that with my dad growing up. I saw the challenges from in the late 70s when interest rates were through the roof. And, my dad had basically turned to my mom and said, we have another year to make this business work or else, we have nothing more. And everything was on the line with my parents. They had put their house on the line, everything was collateralized, and they made it through. That pressure, I couldn't imagine growing up. I couldn't even fathom what that was. And Corey and I have dealt with those kind of challenges, and we've grown the business each and every year to where it's at today. And we're excited about the future. And again, it's because we're focused on the future. We're not worried about the mistakes we made in the past.
Well, that's great advice. And I think if you analogize what you've just said about being the owner of of a business to being the owner of your career,
Yeah.
the idea is exactly the same. You're gonna stumble, you're gonna trip. Nobody leads a perfect career, no matter how wonderful it may look from the outside. All of us struggle with issues inside our career. So the advice is you got to put your put your head down and push your way through the challenges. You got to stay confident in yourself, I suspect is what you're
Absolutely.
saying, that you believe in what you're trying to do and you're going to stick to it as long as necessary to make it work.
Yeah, yeah, and flexibility. I mean, that again, like you said, it was a great point. Whether you're a job seeker, an employer, a business owner, you're working for someone else, you have to be flexible in your belief system. If you think X, Y, and Z is going to work, why don't you look at A, B, C and see what those options are? You can't get too mired in the details and too hardened in your viewpoint. No matter what you're doing, whether you're a business owner or you're working for someone or you're a job seeker or an employer, you have to always be flexible and you have to try out everything when moving forward if you want to succeed. Because at some point, that strategy that you had sitting in the closet that you want to pull out and take advantage of, that might be the trick that might get you over the hump.
Okay. So we're pretty close to the end of our session. So I want to ask you my favorite question. Knowing what you know now, if you had to write a letter to your 21-year-old self and give yourself some advice about how best to chart your career towards an end that has meaning and purpose and value for you, what advice would you give yourself?
Wow, I'd give myself a lot of advice, but I think there's a few things, and it kind of comes full circle to our conversation. My dad, who's 91 now, and who's a wonderful mentor in my life, and my dearest friend, literally says you got to grind it out. You got to work hard. You got to believe in what you're doing. No matter where you're at in your life, no matter where you're at with your career, you're gonna fall. You got to pick yourself up, but it's the grinding it out that, my dad used to always say, and I believe this too. When I walk into a room, I know I'm not going to be the smartest person there. There's going to be someone that might have more knowledge about whatever, maybe about a business. There might be someone that is more street savvy, whatever it may be. There's different levels of intellect, and you can't compete across all those. So I knew going into a room that there would be people that were smarter than me. But what I did know was that there would no one in that room would work harder than me. No one in that room that I walked in would take the effort that I would undertake, knowing that the one that's going to have their goals fulfilled are the ones that are going to work hard at it, no matter what, and to stay flexible and move forward. And it tends to be kind of a cliche comment, but for me, it's very impactful because that shows when you're working with a client, when you're working with a vendor, when you're working with a boss, whatever it may be, when they see the amount of work that you do and the commitment that you have to your job, that's an impactful statement that you're making out into the marketplace of ideas. And that to me is the matter of success that I would tell my younger self.
Well, there you go. Stick to it, work hard, believe in yourself, but also recognize that um, you got to be flexible, as you said, and you have to put in the sweat equity into your career in order to have a successful outcome. And of course, we all define success ourselves. I mean, your
Yeah.
definition of success for your career is different from mine, is different from everybody else's. But it's important to have some sense of what that definition is. It's going to grow and mature over time, but still understanding what you hope to get out of your career, what gives you that reason to get up in the morning and invest all that hard work, I think is an important first step. So, Michael, it was just great having the time to chat with you about what you and Corey have created there at careersandgovernment.com. It's one of the absolute best websites on the web if you have not visited it. Even if you're not a person in the public sector, you need to go and see what
Yes.
Michael and Corey have created. It's just a wonderful addition to the talent acquisition space.
Thank you,
So,
Peter.
so, Michael, thank you for coming. Our next guest, our next program is going to be with Karen Mullins, who is the president of MedReps, and another real thought leader in our space. So please join us for your next edition of Career Makers. See you next time. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Michael.